Some great lines in that song. Is it heavenly truth versus earthly lies? A race where everyone wins. Wow, beautiful. I was just moved by the music this morning. We have the wonderful choir up here and joy in being broadcast, which is so great. And then there's just the mystical, some mystical melodies coming forth. And doesn't that fit this time of year? We enter into the mystery of the Christmas season here. So I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, and we carry that gratitude forward into the holiday season here. So how many of you have some special Christmas traditions, things you do or like to do every year? Whether it's baking or getting a tree or having family candles, whatever. A few, yeah. I was reading a story about a family who had a little boy named Dean, and Dean turned 4. So he got to help his dad go down and get the Christmas tree out of the box and bring it up the stairs, and they decorated it, and then the family went to go look at the lights, or drive around, look at the lights in town. And as they passed, one car had a Christmas tree on top of its roof. It looked like it had just been cut. And Dean was puzzled. He said, "Daddy, why are they taking their tree for a ride?" Love kids' perspective, you know. So a tradition that we do here in Unity is the season of Advent. And Advent is the 4 Sundays before Christmas. That is a spiritual time of spiritual preparation to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And also in Unity, we see it as a time to celebrate the birth of a new dimension of our Christ self being born. Because right now there is something stirring in you that is coming to fruition, that is so good, that will get your attention in a new way. Can you feel something stirring? Yeah. Divinity born in humanity, as Jesus was, is also being born continually within us. And divinity born in humanity is always stirring to create something good. So I also want to thank Kathy for the beautiful altar here too. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. And so today's focus and candle is on hope and faith. So we all need hope, right? That gets us up in the morning. The automatic coffee pot helps too. Hope keeps us moving toward the direction of our dreams too, you know? But hope is a little bit different than faith. Hope gets us started, and faith is like there for the marathon, the long run. And so maybe we take those two for granted, because I bet you give hope and faith every day to someone. When somebody you know is having a hard time with something, to let them know, I'm here with you, I'm here for you. This too shall pass, you'll make it through it. Yeah. I like this. I didn't see the author, but hope is the ability to hear the music of the future, and faith is having the courage to dance to it today. So it is said that hope is emotional, belief is intellectual, but faith is spiritual. So there's some mystery with that. We try to define it, but it can't be defined. It can't be contained. It's always more than our intellect can try to figure out, but we can experience it in new ways. So faith is trust and confidence that a right outworking, despite any outer appearances, is at work. So faith helps to elevate us to rise above for a higher perspective of what might be going on. So we get a lot of practice with that. Yeah. The Bible and the writers of Hebrews called faith the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So we walk by faith, not by sight. So have you ever had assurance about something? You were just so sure and confident that it was going to happen. And there's a peace that comes with that, right? That assurance. And conviction means there's no doubt. You're full speed ahead, moving forward. So the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So faith is more than a feeling or a belief. It's a spiritual power that we can call forth at any time. And I love this with Eric Butterworth. He says, faith is not a vague process of believing in something. It's a process of turning on something. So we already have all the faith we need. He compares it to a dimmer switch. Do you have those in your house? You know, a rheostat or a dimmer switch that our faith, we can turn up the dial and it gets brighter. We can turn down the dial and it gets darker. So we have the choice about turning up our faith. So I want you to think about your life for a moment. Is there something in your life that you would like to have more faith about? That you would like to turn up that dial, shine the light of faith on. And then can you imagine yourself totally confident and at peace with that? I invite you to try that on this week. So I was thinking about this title, Faith It Till You Make It. It really speaks to the concept of a leap of faith, right? So what are we leaping over? Maybe a pit of doubt or a mucky puddle of fear? Past history? Other people's fears and doubts? Or trying to control things that are out of our control. Perhaps also leaping over impatience. Because sometimes faith requires great patience, doesn't it? We think something should be happening. If it doesn't, okay, I'm mad at you, God. Where is it? Why isn't it here? So patience. So if you find yourself, your faith waning, you might want to call on your patience. I like this from Reverend Charles Roth. He said, patience is waiting, and while you are waiting, living. It is living completely in the present moment, drinking of the good that is in it. While in the back of your mind, you gratefully know that increasing good is on the way. That's that assurance, isn't it? And that peace about it. So deepening our faith is really surrendering to something greater than our intellect that thinks it has all figured out. Because our intellect, as great as it is, has incomplete information. We think we may have all the answers, but there's always more that we can't see, but faith knows, divine mind knows. Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Good words for us. So faith is the ability to say yes to God, yes to good, yes to truth. And it's a confident belief that God's good is at work right now in our lives and in the world. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore had this to say. He called it the spiritual assurance, the power to do the seemingly impossible. Because the intellect likes to argue with faith and say all the reasons why something won't work or won't come about. But faith says, don't confuse what hasn't been done yet with what can't be done. So faith, building our faith often requires suspending the intellect and calling forth our imagination to work with faith. Fillmore also called it a magnetic power. Faith is a magnetic power that draws unto us our heart's desire from the invisible spiritual substance to the visible realm. And think about the good things in your life. You've already done this. You do this. And so this is a reminder for us about how it works. So faith is magnetic. And how much good are you willing to perceive for yourself or for others, for our world? Because it has to start up here first, right, before we see it out there. Fillmore further defined faith as the perceiving power of mind linked with the ability to shape substance. So substance is that God energy that is, and our thoughts helped co-create what first in here with our imagination, then out in our world, right? And when we perceive something as possible, we start to see evidence of it, right? So we can experiment with this. That's what I love about Unity. It doesn't just say, believe this and I'll see you next week. It says, hey, guess what? We have some spiritual principles here. Go try them out. See how they work in your life. See how they work within you and what the good that happens here. And so what if we perceived faith that humanity is becoming kinder and more compassionate, and that there is a great awakening breaking through in the hearts and minds of all people. Now, despite all of the heartbreaking things we read in the news and things beyond our control, there is a goodness and a light breaking out of it, or maybe because of it, breaking forth in a huge way. What will we notice with that walking out the door? So look around, and what do you see? I was at a couple of coffee shops, and I was amazed. I don't know if any of you have been to the Dutch Brothers, but they're very popular, so you're in line for quite a while. And I always tell the workers there, thank you, you made people so happy today. Thank you for being here. But on their wall, on one of them, it said, I love this, I've never seen this in a coffee shop before. It said, to talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person you meet. They're serving hope with their coffee, right? Inspiration. The Starbucks by my house had this huge bulletin board with sticky notes, and they encouraged people to take a sticky note and put it on their gratitude board. And as I was standing in front of it, just reading all of it, I thought, this is all goodness that's hidden sometimes within people, you know? There's like this gold mine of goodness that we can tune into, that sometimes we doubt that's there, or where is it if we listen to the news. But there's this goodness within. There's this goodness in this room that Butterworth called that our imprisoned splendor, to let it out. So that's our invitation this Christmas season, this Advent season, to let that imprisoned splendor out, let that light out, that hope out, that faith out. Let it come out and play. Divinity born in humanity is always stirring for something good. So to know we have a choice where we put our faith. Do we put it in the eternal or the temporary? Do we put it in the truth or the circumstance? I think we heard something in the song about that too. Where do we put our faith? Sometimes we get some faith and we just start going down the road. We don't know what's past those trees, but hey, I can see the road and I'm going to keep going. No signs, but a road. I had to add this one because I've heard people say, I just want to be the monk on the mountain, and get away from it all. And then I saw this picture and I thought, wow, do you know how to rock climb? That may be photoshopped, I'm not sure. But getting to that higher perspective, right, is what we can do to build our faith, going there. Charles Fillmore, he said, when we fail to exercise the faith we have, we are bound by fear, unable to fully use our God-given spiritual faculties. And so I think maybe we've all experienced that at some point of our life, feeling kind of stuck, stagnant. But the good news, that freedom is one new thought away. We can always turn up the dial on our faith and have a new experience in here and out here. And Jesus said we just need a little teeny bit of faith, just a speck, the size of a mustard seed. So even turning up that dial just a little bit, we will be lifted and carried through any experience. How many of you are familiar with the story of Amy Purdy? And maybe her name will sound familiar as I describe her life. She's a 43-year-old woman whose life turned on a dime. She has TED Talks and is an author also. And she faced incredible challenges that is a true example of faith it till you make it. When she was 19, she had a sudden onset of a disease. And by the time she got to the hospital, her body was in shock. So they had to do emergency surgery. The doctors removed 2 of her internal organs. And they had to amputate both of her legs at the knee down. And she speaks of how difficult this was for her, lying in bed for months. She describes it as being emotionally and physically broken. And she describes how she went from a normal 19-year-old that could throw on some flip-flops, run out the door without a care in the world, to someone who relied on machines, mechanics, and medical innovations just to survive. So she talks about how she was depressed, overwhelmed, until, and I imagine she had a lot of prayer from her parents and her family and her community. And so this little spark came to her, this little divine idea. And she was inspired to ask herself this question. If my life story were a book and I was the author, how would I want my story to go? Isn't that a great question for all of us? And she said this one question allowed her to daydream, to imagine possibilities, and use her imagination. She said, I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want people feeling sorry for me, or seeing me as someone who had a handicap, or that girl with prosthetic legs. I didn't want that. And so what she focused on was what she did want. And she said, I saw myself walking gracefully, somehow helping other people through similar situations, and snowboarding again. And she didn't just think it, she employed her whole senses with this. She imagined herself sliding down that slope with the white powder of the snow and feeling the wind on her face and her heart beating fast with the exhilaration of it. And that's where she would take her faith and her mind over and over again. And she said that's when a new chapter began. So she perceived it. She imagined it. What seemed impossible at the time, she saw as a possibility. Her faith saw as a possibility and kept her going. She credits inspiration and commitment, imagination and faith. And she went on to do amazing things. She became an author, she became an actress, a motivational speaker, a clothing designer. She won medals in the Paralympics and co-founded Adaptive Action Sports to help people with disabilities have opportunities for action sports. And I also read on her updated bio that she was on Dancing with the Stars. Can you imagine how far, where her mind and her energy had to go from lying in that bed, just despondent, really, to Dancing with the Stars. Wow. And it didn't happen overnight. She was persistent and faithful. I like this from Charles Fillmore too. He says, faith works by love. Thoughts of condemnation, enmity, and resistance must be released, and divine love declared. Then faith will work unhindered. So it really speaks to being willing to forgive ourselves and others for the way things turned out, that we thought were going to turn out differently, to make peace with that and to let it go, and to know that divine love heals and fuels our faith that something good is at work. She also wrote shortly after, I thank God for family, faith, passion, and inspiration. I do believe that they are keys to overcoming challenges, big and small. So that support of family or community is important too. Which is wonderful why we come here every week. Right? There's a support of spiritual family. And a reminder that whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. So whatever challenge that you may be facing or that may come up in the next few weeks, big or small, know that you have the choice to turn up the dial of faith. Turn up that dial of faith and let it be that lamp in the darkness, that inner star that will guide you through any experience. That safety net that catches you and carries you to the other side. Close with this from Mahatma Gandhi. I really like this. Who said, "It is faith that steers us through stormy seas, faith that moves mountains, and faith that jumps across the ocean. That faith is nothing but a living, wide-awake consciousness of God within." So let us go forth this week with that living, wide-awake consciousness of God within. That's who you truly are. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Robyn.